Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy. That is my co-host, Rob Dunham.
Repping the coffee and cream hat,
Yeah.
best coffee shop in Columbia. You have a chance to check it out.
Interesting.
Yep.
The only one I've been to in Columbia is the Prince Street there.
Yep. Yeah, I've been to that one too. This is right across from the river, down by the rail trail there.
Okay, I think I know where you're at.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you have a chance. Really good food, ice cream, breakfast sandwiches. They got it all. This is not an advertisement. This is just like my favorite coffee shop. So I stop there a couple times a week, usually on the way to work.
Although, if they would want to sponsor the podcast,
and they're more than welcome to.
All right. Well, this is not a sponsorship or coffee podcast. It is, in fact, a movie podcast. And we have a great show in store for you. We'll talk about some box office records being smashed. We'll give you the rundown on the new movies of the weekend and some interesting news items, as well as discussing the best movies of the year so far and what movies we're looking forward to in the second half of the year. Now, there won't be a full breakdown. We'll do that in the next couple of weeks, but it'll give you just a little bit of a teaser as to what's coming up later in the year. And of course, we'll end with our watch list. All right, Rob, where do you want to begin? I think we should do standard and do the box office.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Inside Out 2. Yeah. I should say up front that the box office was up 111% from the previous week. Very largely due to Inside Out 2, which made $154 million in its opening weekend. That's right. $154 million in its opening weekend. Wow. We will definitely get back into that one. Number 2, Bad Boys Ride or Die did $33.7 million. That was only a 40% drop off for Bad Boys Ride or Die in week 2. That is a great second week.
That's phenomenal
for Bad Boys.
I'm not really surprised, because having seen the movie, it just seemed like a movie that would have good word of mouth to me.
Yeah, I chose to go see the Bikeriders, which we'll talk about later, over Bad Boys, but I may get around to Bad Boys here soon. So Bad Boys in its second week is up to 113 million in 2 weeks. Great showing for that movie. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes went from 5th last week back up to 3rd. And it did 5.5 million. It is up over 158 million. The Garfield movie was down to number 4 this week. It did $4.7 million. It is at $78 million for its 4-week run so far. And number 5 in the box office was If. This is 3 kids movies in the top 5 now. 3.6, and that is over 100 million. So If has now crossed the $100 million domestic box office line there. So lots of kids movies doing well right now. But we got to talk about Inside Out. What are your thoughts here? 154 million.
Yeah, we said last week I had mentioned some of the projection articles we were talking about, and that like Deadline was projecting 90 million and Pixar conservatively themselves were projecting 80 to 85 million, and it did almost double that.
And we were shocked that it was projected to do 90.
Yeah.
Considering we spent like the last month talking about why are people not going to the movies, and then randomly Inside Out 2 just does 154 million.
Yeah. And the thing that's even more phenomenal about this, I mean, we're not going to get there until we get to the final numbers next week, but this doesn't include the fact that on Monday this movie made $20 million. On Tuesday it made $29 million, and on Wednesday it made $30 million more, above and beyond what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, and Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, was a holiday.
Yep.
So you would have a lot of kids off. I mean, the kids are off for school, but like some daycares were closed and things like that. So you might have had more opportunities to go to theaters that day. But yeah, this thing is doing a monster killing. In fact, you want to jump into the records at this point?
Yeah, go ahead. Read over some of these records because it's pretty phenomenal.
Okay, so this is the deal with Inside Out 2. It is the second biggest domestic animated opening of all time. And that is just behind Incredibles 2, which did 182 million. And it is now ahead of the 3-day Mario release of 146. So it is bigger than Mario over the first weekend, and we know how Mario was last year. It is the biggest opening for an animated movie worldwide at $295 million. It also, based on exchange rates and stuff, has it higher than Super Mario Brothers. It is the highest international animated opening of all time at $140.8 million. It is the biggest box office opening year to date. And it's not even close because the previous best this year was Dune Part 2's 82.5 million. So it nearly doubled the second biggest opening of the year so far. It is the biggest animated opening for Disney post-COVID. Yeah. It is the first movie to open at $100 million plus since Barbie last summer. So it's been almost an entire year since a movie debuted opening weekend at $100 million. It didn't quite beat Barbie. Barbie did $162 million on opening weekend, but it pulled dang close.
Mm-hmm.
It's fourth highest domestic PG opening ever. It is the second biggest domestic Monday for Pixar because, as you said, it did $22.2 million on its Monday. And it is the second biggest opening day for an animated film at the domestic box office, 63.5 million. Again, second to Incredibles Part 2. It did 12 million US admissions in terms of like 12 million people went to see it. So really, really interesting. Lots and lots.
I mean, we had talked about the fact that based on the projected numbers, it seemed like they were thinking it would have a broad range of appeal between not just young kids, but like teenagers, young adults, and parents and older people. And it seems like that was vastly underestimated how broad of an appeal it was. I think this turned out, we're seeing now, this turned out to be a movie that like entire, not just single family units, but like extended families and friends went to see. Because these kind of numbers aren't possible without that.
It's really, really fascinating. You brought up one aspect in that all the families went to see it, but why this movie? I mean, we've seen so many other quality movies this year have disappointing box office takes. What do you attribute Inside Out to being the movie that drew everyone's attention?
I think it's just a lot of it is the nostalgia factor of people really loving the first movie and remembering how good the first movie was. Because as we talked about, Pixar in general has not had a very good run.
Yeah.
So people were not going to this movie for what Pixar is. They were going to this movie for what Pixar was.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you. And I think what I would also tag on what they hope Pixar returns to be. I think that's a key element to this. And I think people probably went with the hope that this would bring back old Pixar, pre-Disney Pixar. And they were just, it seems like to me that there is, it's almost, I don't know if it's this, I don't know if it's this direct, but almost like a rebellion against what's been out in the box office. And they all decided, it's like almost like everyone subconsciously decided, okay, this is the one I'm going to. I'm making a statement by saying we want more like this. We want more.
I mean, also wonder, like, is this an indication of what Despicable Me 4 is going to do?
Mm,
Because I feel like Despicable Me 4 has just as broad a reach as Inside Out 2
yeah.
did. Because I think there are a lot of people who just love Minions.
Well, and the Minions movies have been absolutely destroying Pixar over the last couple of years.
And that's coming out July 4th weekend too,
Yeah.
which means that they're going to have a whole holiday weekend
Yeah.
to have people come out to the box office.
Mhm. I also think there's slight timing of it. Kids are out of school now. I mean, basically everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
so since you're out of school, like this is the destination movie. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think this was I think that's a part of it. That I think this is very much the start of summer destination movie for kids who are getting done with the school year.
yeah.
I definitely think that was a part of it. The families were congregating around this movie because of that specific scenario.
Mhm. And I think just the desire, like, give us good quality family movies that we want to go see. I think it seems to me like that's the statement. You know, people made a statement when they went to see Top Gun Maverick. Give us movies like this. They, made statements that we want original content last summer when Barbie and Oppenheimer. Like the box office is telling you, the theaters, the movie audience is telling you what they want, and the question is, will there be response to actually give it? That's a question. But that really shocked me, because we have not had, the box office in general has been hurt this year, in some ways, and so really happy to see a movie exceed expectations to that degree. So, anything else on Inside Out 2?
No, I just want to say again, I think it's worth mentioning that the performance for Bad Boys 2 is very impressive
Yeah.
too. Especially, I mean, considering how much money Inside Out 2 made,
Mm-hmm.
that Bad Boys 2 still had this
Yeah.
very small drop off is very impressive.
Well, and it's interesting because basically, if you didn't want to go see a kids movie, you look at the top five. I mean, Planet of the Apes has been out for 6 weeks now, so it's probably going to be Bad Boys. And so it benefited, one, because I think word of mouth had to be quite good for it, and it was the main movie to go see last weekend if you weren't going to see a kids movie. But still, 33 million is more than some of the other movies have made on their debut week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really impressive showing there. Okay, so that is the box office from last week, and now let's talk about movies that came out this weekend. So there's three main movies that came out this weekend. The first one is The Bikeriders. This is rated R, has a runtime of 1 hour 56 minutes, starring Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, and Tom Hardy. And the plot here is, after a chance encounter, headstrong Kathy is drawn to Benny, member of the Midwest motorcycle club, the Vandals. As the club transforms into a dangerous underworld of violence, Benny must choose between Kathy and his loyalty to the club. So that is Bikeriders. And did you go see this?
I did. I saw it
Okay,
last night.
so we'll give you a breakdown of this a little bit in our watch list segment. But number two up this weekend, The Exorcism, rated R, 1 hour and 33 minutes, starring Russell Crowe. And this is, a troubled actor begins to exhibit a disruptive behavior while shooting a horror film. His estranged daughter wonder if he's slipped back into his past addictions or if there's something more sinister at play. Is this connected to The Exorcist or any of those type of movies? Do you know?
No, this is very different from a
Just a
normal exorcism
standalone.
in that it's not really about the exorcism at all. It's about the guy playing the priest who's filming. So it's a movie about a movie.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe
Interesting.
is playing the priest who's performing this rite in the movie, and then just starts to kind of go insane. So I'm actually very much looking forward to it because it's very different from the normal exorcism type movies.
Okay. And lastly, we have Thelma, PG-13, 1 hour and 37-minute runtime. June Squibb is the main character here. And this is when a 93-year-old Thelma Post gets duped by a phone scammer pretending to be her grandson. She sets out on a treacherous quest across the city to reclaim what was taken from her. So, yeah, interesting. Uh, Obviously, we were drawn in by the Bikeriders since we got a chance to see that this weekend. Um, I'll put it this way: what made you want to go see this movie this weekend?
The main thing that drew me to the movie was the people involved.
Yeah, yeah,
So I can't I don't really have an affinity for motorcycles or motorcycling. Really more just I've seen enough of Austin Butler to trust him as an actor at this point, and I've certainly seen enough of Tom Hardy to trust him as an actor at this point. However, I will say, and this is kind of a little spoiler for when we get to the end. To me, neither of them had the best performance in the movie. We'll get to that when we talk about what we watched.
I actually think Jodie Comer is quite underrated.
Yeah,
She's quite good, and she has been in pretty much everything I've seen her in.
I mean, we'll talk about this a little more in depth, but I don't see a way she does not get nominated for Best Actress for this performance at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's we'll get to it when we talk about it, but it is definitely, if you like character acting, this is your movie.
Yep.
Because I was in a similar boat. The plot and the general storyline didn't really interest me that much, but the actors did. So that's what drew me in. So this is definitely one, if you like any of those actors, if you like good acting performances, this is a movie for you. You talked a little bit about The Exorcism and what made you interested in.
Yep. I'll be seeing it tomorrow night, so looking forward to that.
And I don't particularly have any interest in Thelma, but maybe there's humor in there. I don't know. Anything else on those?
Nope.
Okay. Next up, we have just a kind of a fun news item. If you happen to be in the Eastern Pennsylvania region, and Netflix is bringing a Netflix theater to the area. And my article is not loading. So basically, Netflix has started making some theaters at which they can run some of their programming in, some TV show programming, some movie programming. And in the process, they are putting one in this general area.
Yeah, there's gonna be it's gonna be in King of Prussia.
Yes.
The mall, taking the place of one of the former anchor stores in the mall. Also, if you happen to be listening to this podcast in the Dallas, Texas area, they're opening two of these. One is going to be in King of Prussia. One is going to be in Dallas, the greater Dallas area. And the reason why they picked these two malls is that they are two of the highest foot traffic malls in the United States.
Yes.
Around major cities. So obviously with King of Prussia, you're talking about the Philadelphia crowd, is what makes the King of Prussia mall so big. And if you are in the Eastern Pennsylvania area and have not been there, you should definitely go check it out. It's a very unique experience because it's what malls used to be, but it still is because of its location.
Yeah.
And because of the quality of stores that are in the mall itself. So I mean, I'm pretty fascinated that they're putting it in that mall, and it's not going to be just a classic like movie theater type thing. They also are talking about doing a bunch of interactive exhibit type things with the different shows, different food offerings and like restaurant spaces tied to the shows. So I have a feeling that if you go to the King of Prussia Netflix house, you're going to be able to go into like the ice cream shop from Stranger Things, or stuff like that. That'll be unique experiences that you're only going to be able to get in that place.
Yeah, and some of the words here, eye-popping sculptures and mural mashups of characters are some of the things they're planning on bringing here. Really, really fascinating stuff. So not just movies, you'll get some of their TV show content. I think it's a fascinating concept, and I like the idea of Netflix doing something different and bringing some of their content to the bigger screen. That was always the one thing that I think they lack, and I think it's mutually beneficial. People will benefit from seeing their stuff on a wider screen, and I think it will benefit Netflix to hopefully up the quality, particularly on their movie content, in order for it to match big screen quality. So I'm hoping that this is a very beneficial way, and doing things differently might help traditional theaters figure out more ways to do more ways to bring in audiences and more ways to make them more fun and interactive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm quite stoked that there's one going in King of Prussia. We'll have to figure out a time to go visit it once it opens.
Yeah, and I mean, King of Prussia does have a little bit of experience hosting like event spaces or special things. They had the Friends experience there last year, where they had like different sets from the TV show and a whole bunch of different memorabilia. It's kind of like a mobile Friends museum that went around the country, different places. So they certainly have proven that they're capable of doing things like this. So I'm very interested in checking it out, and definitely we'll have to, tie that into a Cheesecake Factory visit.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Also, we are not sponsored by the Cheesecake Factory, but that would make me like the happiest man in the world if that were ever to happen.
Yes. Okay. So that's exciting news. But now let's move on to our discussion topic. Movies that we're going to do two kind of things. We're going to do three movies that we are three best movies of the year. So we are 6 months in to the year now, and it is time to review the first half of the year. What movies do we think are best? So we'll give you three movies of our favorites for the year, and then we will give you a preview of what's coming over the next 6 months. We'll give you three movies that we are most looking forward to over the rest of the year. Now, like I said, probably next week, but maybe the week after that, we'll do a full breakdown on all the movies coming out in July and August for the rest of the summer. But until then, we'll give you a little bit of a teaser about movies coming out, not just this summer, but the rest of the year as well. So we're going to start off with movies of the year. So just give me a brief snapshot of your opinion of the movies that have debuted over the first 6 months before we get into the specific ones.
Looking at what has come out this year, I don't think there's been that many phenomenal movies yet. In fact, I'm almost positive you and I will have the same movies, number one and number two, although in which order I'm not certain. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see what you have at number three. But because of that, like to me, there have been two movies that have come out this year that are clearly far and away above everything else.
Yeah, I agree. And like, if I had to choose a fourth movie, it would be well below the top three. Because I have, like, on my ratings app, almost everything else outside of the top three has been given middling level ratings that I've seen, like mid-level or better, So yeah, it would have been a little tough to find a fourth movie. So I could do it, and I technically did, but that's all right. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I have like three, and then one that I would have close to the top three. So I guess I have four.
All right. So give me that one. We'll make that an honorable mention.
Let's do. So my honorable mention would be The First Omen.
Okay.
And this is the best horror movie I've seen this year so far, and probably one of the best I've seen in a few years. It was. I mentioned this when I first reviewed it, that it was far more cinematic than I expected it to be. So that's why it is where it is for me in my rating, just because there are not a whole lot of horror movies that turn out to be actually genuinely good well-made movies, and this is
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
So I don't quite have it in the top three, but I have a strong feeling it will be in the top 10 by the end of the year.
Mhm.
It was a very well executed movie.
Yeah. I went back and forth on this one. I guess I will go with, and it's rated well below my top three, but I guess I'll go with Challengers.
Hmm.
There were some unique cinematic elements. The soundtrack was fantastic to that movie. Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross. They had some really unique shots, like POV tennis shots of the ball
Hmm.
traveling back and forth, which were really cool. Um, there were some interesting interactions and some interesting things there. Not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but there was enough different or interesting about it, and it wasn't as bad as I was anticipating it might be. So maybe I'm grading on a curve there. So that would be my honorable mention. All right, give me your third one, because this is probably one where we're going to be different on.
Well, you have not seen my third one yet. So my third one is Inside Out 2.
Okay.
I was very impressed by it.
Hmm.
Tells a really good story. It's funny. The new characters add quite a bit to the story, and it's a movie that is designed for a whole family to appreciate. And I think that they did a very good job of sticking to what has made them successful. Like you said, people went to this movie hoping that might be a return to that, and I think they did that. And after watching the movie, I went online and looked up some articles, which was a mistake. But we talked about agendas in movie making, and there is a wide swath of opinion here on what Disney's agenda is with the Riley character, and some people who believe one thing and say, "Oh, it's so obvious from the movie that blah blah blah," and people who say the exact opposite thing and say it's so obvious from the movie that that's not true. And I mean, I don't see what some people saw in this movie. I don't. And now, granted, in the past, Disney has pushed some agendas on certain things, but I don't see it in this movie. And I
Okay.
think who are who are trying to pull it out of the movie are grasping at complete straws.
I can
Um,
I can definitely understand why people are looking for it in Disney movies now, because they've been rather explicit about it at
yeah,
times.
yeah. So I mean, just in general, I would say I have no issue at all saying this is a Disney Pixar movie that is more than good for the whole family to go watch. That has some good messaging and um, positive positive look at what it means to grow up.
Hmm.
Um, and I just thought they handled a lot of that with a lot of uh, clarity and a lot of sensitivity.
Hmm.
Um, just it's a very well written movie. So it's an easy number three for me.
Excellent. Excellent. That's good to hear. My number three is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Mm.
Um, it was the Guy Ritchie World War II movie, and I just thought it was fun. It was enjoyable. The action was great. The characters were fun and interesting, and um, I enjoyed what it was. I mean, it's not my favorite Guy Ritchie movie of all time, but I just enjoyed it and had fun with it, and it was exactly what I was hoping it would be. So I think that helps for that standpoint. So yeah, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I
Yeah,
didn't.
that's certainly a movie I could see ending up in my top 10 by the end of the year. Definitely a well-made movie deserving of recognition for sure.
Yeah.
So now with number two and number one, I'm curious. I think we will have the same number one and number two in order, but I'm not 100% positive. So number two, I have Furiosa. Do you have Furiosa number two?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. And honestly, it's no fault of Furiosa's
Hmm.
at all that it's number two. Um, like we both said in our review of it and our breakdown of it, it's not what we expected.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, because it was not what we expected, it ended up being a better movie than maybe we thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
And having watched it a second time, I felt like the second watch made me appreciate it even more. So I think it's one of those movies that the more I watch it, the more I'm going to appreciate it. And that's the sign of a really well made movie.
Yeah, and I have not gotten around to seeing it twice again. It's only in one theater around here. still, and I look forward to seeing it again. Um, but yeah, it's well done. It's really interesting. We talked about it a lot recently, so I don't feel like we have to cover that tremendously. You can check out our back episodes of our podcast to find out exactly what we think of it. But it was just really well done, and it still pains me that it did not do better at the box office than it did, because I think it deserved to do better, and I don't know what to make of that still. But it was excellent. It was different and excellent, and created a wider cinematic universe for it. So all in all, great movie. This will undoubtedly be in my top 10 by the end of the year, and probably in the top 5 unless great movies come out.
Yep. And
But
this leaves Dune Part 2 as number 1.
it does.
Which, like I said, it's no fault of Furiosa's, but at the same token, I feel like Dune Part 2 is a far superior movie. And it doesn't mean Furiosa is not a great movie, because it is. It just means Dune 2 is an even greater movie.
It is.
Dennis Villanueva's vision for this world that has been realized is something to behold.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into this movie with high expectations, and it blew my expectations out of the water. I should tell you all you need to know about the movie. Timothée Chalamet is just fantastic in his role as this character, as the protagonist, and the mythology, the story, the world building that Villanueva has done with this is, man, just it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. 100%. And it's one of those where, like most sequels, you have to expand the world out. And of course, this was based on a book, so everyone knew where you were headed with this. But there's so much more meat to the story itself. It's not just introducing characters, introducing the world. So much of the first movie had to be like getting you into what this incredibly nuanced, crazy world is. And this one allowed it to focus more on where is the story headed. And all the performances were great. All of the directing and the cinematography was great. The soundtrack was great. It's not a soundtrack that I like. A lot of Hans Zimmer soundtracks are things I listen to when I work. Dune 2 isn't really like that, because there's the the screaming desert things. Just isn't quite as listenable on its own, but it works perfectly with the movie, and it just set a really high bar at the very beginning of the year for movies to come the rest of the year. It's going to be hard to knock off Dune 2.
Yeah, I would agree. It would be pretty hard for it to not be number 1 by the end of the year, I think.
I have a movie on here that I think has a chance.
Okay.
Well, not that I think has a chance, but I say I would love for it to rival and compete for that top spot.
Yes.
But
all right, so let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Movies that we're looking forward to here in the second half of the year. I will start. I have one that's actually coming out the June 28th. And it's actually, the first part of it is coming out June 28th. It's actually a 2-part movie, and it's called Horizon: An American Saga, and it's Kevin Costner's Western epic.
Yeah.
That's coming out. That's going to be 2 full movies worth of movies coming out 2 months apart from each other. We have talked about this before on the podcast, but I'm a big fan of a well done Western, and it's just, there have not been a lot of them.
Yeah, it's been a while too.
And the most recent, like, one that I can remember really sticking out to me as being phenomenal was 3:10 to Yuma. And that was like over a decade ago at this point. It was quite a while ago.
What was the one?
A remake of an old Western, even.
Oh, what was the one with Jeff Bridges and the girl? That was a remake of like a John Wayne one that came out. I feel like,
yeah, I'm picturing the art right now, and True Grit.
True Grit. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, True Grit got recognition when it came out as well.
Yeah.
But this movie, Horizon in American Saga, has Kevin Costner, Sienna Miller, Sam Worthington, Joan Malone, Abby Lee, Thomas Hayden Church, Will Patton. There's just like there's so many people in this movie, and it looks like it's going to be phenomenal. Luke Wilson even is in this movie. Um, it looks to me like it's. I love long form storytelling drama, and this movie looks like it's going to really knock it out of the park with that. And it seems like it's really something that Kevin Costner is passionate about
Mhm.
too. Obviously, he's most well known maybe for one of his long form Western type dramas, Dances with Wolves. So this is not new territory for Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Um, Very much something that he is passionate about. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out here.
And it seems to me that um that it's definitely about like the move out west, the exploring and the expansion and the moving out west. So I think it really as possible westerns go, I think this one could be good. It's not my favorite genre. However, I think there definitely could be something worthy of that in this one.
All
Um,
right, what do you got?
yeah, so the first one I'm looking forward to comes out on July 19th, and that's Twisters.
Hmm.
I am a big fan of the original Twister. It's one that I will watch periodically and revisit periodically. It was as disaster movies go, Twister was up there with some of the best of them. And I'm curious to see how they do for a new generation. And so I'm really looking forward to that one. The trailers look good, and I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far, and I would love to be able to for it to have similar cachet to how uh, Twister, the original one, had. And of course, Glenn Powell, who's everywhere now. um, Glenn Powell is the main star here. Daisy Edward Jones is also in the movie. So that comes out in less than a month here.
Yeah, and this is going to be a theme for the next few movies. I think we talk about is hoping that they build on the success or replicate success of previous entrants in the series. Because the next one for me is August 16th as well, and it is Alien Romulus. Uh,
Mm.
I this is based on a story that's been out there, but not put to film yet. And Fede Alvarez, the guy who directs it, is a very good horror director, and Ridley Scott is involved, which is a positive in my opinion. Um, we've talked before, we both think that Prometheus did not get the credit it deserved necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Ridley Scott, and it looks like this movie, from what I've seen in the trailers and just read and heard about it, is going to be a very positive entrant into the Alien series. So I'm looking forward to it. It looks like very good space survival horror type movie. So I think it might draw in more people than just the straight horror crowd. People who like the monster movie might come out to this one. But I have pretty high expectations for this one. I'm hoping it lives up to them.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If it's more like Prometheus, I'm on board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it's in terms of its like balance of the horror type stuff, I because I really did like Prometheus. Next up for is on the calendar, moving towards fall here, is I debated about whether to go with this one or not, but I did, and that's October 4th's release of Joker Folie à Deux.
Mm.
Um, I still don't know how I feel about the original Joker, and I still don't know whether it is objectively a very good movie. I just don't know. I don't know if it's redeeming enough. So
Hmm.
I'm really curious as to what they do with this one. Um, the musical element seems like something we haven't seen in a movie of this type ever, possibly. Um, and so because Lady Gaga's already insane, so adding Lady Gaga into the mix of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is going to be mayhem. And so I think this movie is just going to be really different and really unique and hopefully well done. So I would say for those reasons, I have this high on my anticipatory list for the rest of the year.
Nice. Yeah, I'm very curious about how this one is going to shake out.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the biggest draw for me is just curiosity for this movie rather than like anticipating it's going to be phenomenal or anticipating like I'm going to love this movie. It's more genuine curiosity as to what this is going to look like and what it's going to be. Because the other one was dark.
Yeah.
The other one was quite dark. Um, okay. So my last one that I'm looking forward to on the list, we just did 3 apiece, uh, is Gladiator 2. Gladiator 2 comes out. I think it's scheduled right now for November 15th. There was some debate about what sources I looked at, if it's 15th or 22nd. I think the 15th. Gladiator is a top 5 all-time movie for me. Has occupied the top spot previously of my favorite movies of all times. It might still be there. I haven't actually landed that recently, but it's top 3, top 5 all-time movies for me. So I love the idea of going back and revisiting the Roman era, the gladiator era, and coming forth with a new story. This is the one where I would say if it is done super well, it would have a chance to knock off Dune Part 2. It's the only one I'm seeing that for me would have potential to do that, but I don't know if it can. I just don't know if it can. It's got a great cast. Denzel Washington's in it. Pedro Pascal is in it. Connie Nielsen is returning as Lucilla. So really, really curious as to where this is going and what this is going to look like. And I am very, very excited about it. I just don't know. I hope they can pull it off. I hope it's going to be epic. And I hope it ends up near the top of my list at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're really excited about, but also a little nervous
Mm-hmm.
that hopefully they don't screw it up.
Yeah.
My last one that I'm looking forward to might be the one I'm looking forward to the most, just because of the things that I like and the people that I like and the directors that I like. December 25th, Christmas Day, Nosferatu comes out, directed by Robert Eggers.
Ah, yes.
I I like pretty much everything there is about this movie. I love the Dracula type vampire storyline. I love Robert Eggers' style, artistic vision. He is kind of way out there, but in a way that I really enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and predict, already knowing that I'm right, that this movie will not make a lot of money at the box office.
Eggers movies really don't.
But I'm glad they're still letting him make movies because I love his movies. And this movie has Aaron Taylor Johansson, Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, Willem Dafoe. The cast in this movie is phenomenal. Just several very established, competent actors that I think are going to do this great justice. So I just actually saw the first time I saw a trailer for it in the theater was last night before the Bikeriders. So it excited me even more about it coming out.
What do you make of the Christmas Day release for that? Because that's not the type of film that normally comes out on Christmas.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just that the studio was like, well, we know it's not going to make any money anyway, so you might as well put it out on Christmas Day to try and squeeze every penny out of it that we can, since we know it's not going to do a lot.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's really interesting. Okay. Well, that's the movies that have been the best from the last half and the ones we're most looking forward to for the rest of the year. Now let's move on to our watch list, movies we watched over the past week. Now, Rob, you and I both did Bikeriders.
Mm-hmm.
So let's give some general thoughts. And do we want to get into spoilers here a little bit?
We can. I don't really think it's a movie that we need to have like a whole episode breakdown on. So
Okay, we'll do general thoughts and then we'll give you a spoiler warning.
so just in general, and Ryan mentioned this already, this movie is not one that has like a huge overarching kind of narrative storyline structure. I mean, there is a beginning and an end, but to me, it's kind of a lot more like you're looking at uh, vignettes based around like specific days of these people's lives.
Yeah.
So it's really more a study of the characters themselves than it is a movie attempting to tell a like long, cohesive, coherent story.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, depending on how you feel about movie making in general, that will automatically, I think, turn some people off or away from the movie
Mm-hmm.
because it's not what I would say an overwhelming majority of the movie going audience goes to a movie for.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked it. I like when movies do different things, and so I was a fan of the structure of this movie. And to be honest, like I wasn't sure if I was a fan of the structure of this movie probably until almost it was done. I just kind of kept on thinking, like, where is this going? How is it going to end up? Where is it going? Why are these characters introduced? Why should I care? You know, specifically thinking about Norman Reedus's character, the the motorcyclist who comes in from California to join up with them. But there's the beauty of the movie and the thing that makes the movie great, I think, is just the wide range of characters that are present in the movie. Mm-hmm. And to me, hit on the overarching theme of the movie, which I will get to after you give your initial thoughts here.
Yeah. So my initial thoughts are there's a number of things I like and a number of things I'm like, that just drags it down. And the characters were awesome. The characters were very well acted, very well played, interesting characters. It's based around a book of a guy who actually, you know, you see his character in the movie. He is the one recording. He basically does interviews and hangs out with this biker gang for several years. And this is based on the stories that he recorded. And as such, you only have so much to work with. Like what happened was what happened. And so I do think, like, from a storyline perspective, from a narrative perspective, it is lacking. And you don't feel like you're getting necessarily arcs. They're just kind of loose threads that go somewhere. But it doesn't necessarily have a kind of resolution to it in the way you would typically expect from stories. So I think that does hurt the movie in general. But yeah, overall decent movie. So I think it's like the things that I like are really high, and things there's other stuff that just drags it back down towards kind of being in the middle for me.
Yeah, I think that the overarching theme of this movie is that people are looking for somewhere where they belong.
Yeah,
I think that's really just
mm-hmm.
the whole point of the movie, kind of hammered home like over and over and over again, looking at these different,
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, threads or storylines with these people, is they are all trying to find their people.
Yeah,
and the gang starts out as one thing and morphs into several different things over the
Mm-hmm.
course of time, and you realize that things aren't necessarily always in your control. In fact, they're probably most often not in your control.
Yeah.
So that's where the major angst from the movie comes. And I will say, is something very specific. I thought Jodie Comer's performance was the standout in the movie,
For sure.
and I that she'll be nominated for an Oscar at the end of the year for this, and I think it will be very well deserved.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree with that. I thought all the main leads were excellent, but Jodie Comer stood out. Her character's performance is she's kind of the narrator of the story, but she also drives a lot of the feeling and the emotion in the story. And she has the way her performance is, she has the ability to you like her, you feel sympathy for her, but you're also like, yeah, you kind of did this to yourself. But then
Hmm.
at the same time, like she also has the ability to be inside the story and outside the story at the same time, which is really hard to pull off, both from a narrative, from like a writing standpoint and from an acting standpoint to be able to do that. All right, let's get into a few spoilers here. So if you don't want to hear about the specifics of the Bikeriders, you go ahead and skip to the next segment.
So the movie is really based around Tom Hardy's character is the one who starts this motorcycle gang. He starts as a dirt bike racing club and decides that he wants it to be something a little more organized or specific, related around to like just regular motorcycles and riding around. And what's fascinating to me, and something that really stuck out to me, um, the one interview that they did in the movie, in the structure of the movie, the guy's talking about how his parents don't understand because uh, all they hear about when it comes to motorcycle gangs is that these are people who are doing like violent and abhorrent things, and it's not really about that, but it just so happens to turn out that when you're in a motorcycle gang, those kind of things just kind of happen. But it kind of made me think about like my perception of those groups, whether it be the Hells Angels or um, other groups like that. That oftentimes you think about it. At least for me, I know I've thought of that group, and you think of like just one mass of people who are all following lockstep in the same organization, all following the same rules, and all bent on destruction or violence or hurtful things, when in reality it's probably more like what is portrayed in this movie, where there are people from all kinds of different backgrounds, some who just like motorcycles and like talking about motorcycles, some who are expressing or working through some trauma by taking it out on other people. I'm sure there's all kinds of characters and all kinds of personalities in those groups, and that was the one thing that stood out to me most about the movie and had the biggest impression on me. That within this group of people, every person involved was an individual who all had their own specific hopes or dreams, or like their own reasons for trying to find an escape in this group.
Yeah, I think one of the other narrative points for me is just the idea of like having like the desire for having relationships is great. But when you don't combine, especially with men, if you don't combine that with purpose, like real purpose, then it can easily go south. So the bigger the group, bigger the Vandals gets, um, while there was rules, while they had codes, they didn't have purpose. And that ultimately ends up being one of the things that turns the group into something else, because when they end up assimilating new people, especially you talked about, they assimilated a lot of new people back from Vietnam, who were really messed up, and they weren't able to channel that towards something positive, and so that energy starts going negative. And the whole time you get the sense that Tom Hardy's character is kind of like, while he is the leader, he can only take this group so far, and so he loses control of it once it gets past a certain point. And then they don't know, like, because of the codes they've set up and because of the relationships they have, they don't know how to get out of it. And you see that most acutely with Austin Butler's character, who has his loyalties are complex, and he really struggles with what is his primary allegiance to, his wife or the motorcycle club, and what happens when things go south in one or the other. What does he do? And so it's kind of a tragedy. You've got a little bit of like, it's got a little bit of Breaking Bad flavor in terms of it's just a slow descent downhill, but also it has a little bit of Fight Club in it too, where
Mm-hmm.
if you end up channeling that isolation and that desire for companionship in the wrong direction, it becomes destructive, which was, one of the main points of Fight Club. And I think there's a similar vibe here, though executed very differently.
Yeah, I think you definitely hit on the fact that in a lot of ways this is a tragedy. And then, the ending, my friend John, who I watched the movie with, asked me, do you think he was actually happy at the end? Meaning Benny, who's played by
yeah.
And I said, I think what we're supposed to come away with at the end there is that he's like, it's his, that he's wistful, like he wishes things would have turned out a different way, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That he could still be a part of the group, but still have his regular life too. I mean, that's what I got from the end.
I think that's certainly very possible and very accurate. I think it's one of those where the whole movie, his character is kind of torn. And I think what you see at the end is the contentment he has is from having finally just made a decision. He's finally picked his loyalty. And though it seems to me pretty obvious that he misses other aspects of the life before, just the idea that he made a choice, I think is the source of his contentment, as it were. I think I feel like it, in the hands of the right director, I think this one the story could have flowed a little bit better. And maybe it was the downsides of the story, I think, are all around flow and the way it works. And it's not apples to apples comparison, but like you give a story like Zodiac, which doesn't have a true ending and takes place over a long series of years, and it's a complicated back and forth. But David Fincher is such an excellent director that he makes some of that seem really, really punches up. And I just don't think this movie punches up in the way that it could in the hands of a more skilled writer or director.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of screenplay and directing. I'm not talking about the original book because I haven't read the original book this was based on, but yeah. So I just think those elements of it, and I think it's not a genre or storyline that typically appeals to me. So there are just some negatives for me in that space, but all of the characters are deeply interesting and very well acted.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good movie with some flaws, and I think that's where we land on.
Yeah.
I think it's we're both landing on it.
Yeah. So I ended up, like, if I had to give it stars, I'd be borderline between 3.5, just because there's enough negative for me that it balances out the great performances.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So, did you watch anything else?
I watched Inside Out too, but I already gave my thoughts on that, so I don't think I have to say too much more about it. I will say I watched it on the third day of my monthly fast cleanse thing, and there was a whole sequence around Riley's stream of consciousness being a river of food, which I did not appreciate very much, Pixar.
Nice.
But yeah, overall, I thought it was very, very good. And yeah, I'm going to see The Exorcism tomorrow, so that's about it for me.
Cool. I watched some older stuff this past week. I watched Stranger Than Fiction, which is just it's a great movie. It is. It's unique, it's original, dramatic acting from Will Ferrell, but still with the Will Ferrell charm was awesome. And it's just a fun story, an interesting story. And then I did the Bourne Identity and the Bourne Supremacy. So catching up on the original Bourne trilogy, which are all excellent, by the way. So that's it for me.
Nice.
All right, that is the show, everyone. Thanks for checking out Film for Fans, and make sure you visit filmforfans.com, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Tune in next week when we do a breakdown of the remainder of the summer and what's coming out next. Until next time, enjoy the movies.